What's up, gamers, hi wanderers, and hello internet. Welcome to another Sloop Gaming video, and welcome to the patch notes for the upcoming Season 3 Season of the Construct for Diablo 4, launching on January 23rd. Let's take a look. 1.3.0 build, all platforms, class updates. Developers know it's important to us that when a player chooses to fully invest in a skill, the payoff is immense. In pursuit of this goal, several of our new unique and legendary items are targeting skills that have yet to reach their full potential. We're excited to see what players accomplish with our new unique items for Barbarian's Rend, Druid's Lightning Storm, and Sorcerer's Meteor. We are also targeting some pressing issues for each class. Necromancers with Cult Leader should see their minions strike a bit harder. Barbarians shouldn't feel that 3 shouts are a requirement for their success, and sorceresses applying Vulnerable and Lightning Spear should open new build opportunities. There are also class updates to items and skills that are underperforming, such as the Rogue's ranged unique items and the Necromancer's Golem. Now this is a long list, so bear with me. I'm going to go through each bullet point. Again, any thoughts that you have on these notes specifically, or just your overall expectations for Season 3, Season of the Construct, be sure to leave those comments in the section below. All classes, new items, Pain Gorger's Gauntlets, unique gloves, damaging enemies with a cast non-basic skill, marks them for 3 seconds. When a basic skill first hits a marked enemy, the basic skill's damage is echoed to all marked enemies, dealing 100 to 200% X increased damage. Aspect of adaptability, utility. When cast below 50% maximum resource, basic skills generate 3 of your primary resource once per cast. When cast at or above 50% maximum resource, basic skills deal 40 to 80% increased damage. Juggernaut's aspect, defensive. Gain 0.75 to 1.25 armor, but your evade has 100% increased cooldown. Item updates, Ring of Starless Skies. The unique power has been changed. Previous, casting a core skill reduces resource cost of your core skills by 12%, up to a maximum of 40%, resets upon using a non-core skill. New, spending resources reduces your resource cost and increases your damage by times 10% for 3 seconds, up to 40%. Offensive aspect of the Expectant. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Melted Heart of Selig. All stats increase to 2x normal value. Core skill damage changed to movement speed. Damage while healthy increased to 3x normal value. Unique power changed. Previous, gain 30 maximum resource. In addition, when you take damage, drain 3 resources for every 1% of life you would have lost instead. New, gain 60 maximum resource. 75% of incoming damage drains 2 resource for every 1% of life you would have lost instead. Overpower. Overpower attacks now gain plus 1% damage, down from plus 2% per 1% of your base life you have in Fortify. Overpower attacks now gain plus 1% damage, down from plus 2% per 1% of your base life that you have in bonus life above your base life. Barbarian, new items, Ring of the Ravenous. Rend's duration is increased by 2 to 4 seconds. Damaging enemies with brawling skills applies 2 stacks of Rend's bleed. This effect can only occur once every 4 seconds per enemy. Aspect of Sundered Ground, offensive. Every 25 seconds, Upheaval is guaranteed to overpower and deals 10 to 20% increased damage. This timer is reduced by 4 seconds when Upheavals overpowers a boss or an elite enemy. Skills. Charge. Base damage increased by 900% from 0.25 to 2.50. Enhanced charge terrain impact damage increased by 150% from 0.6 to 1.5. Power charge no longer requires a terrain impact to reduce the cooldown of charge. And now charging a boss will reduce the cooldown by 6 seconds. Leap, base damage increased by 30%. Passives, brute force, overpowered damage decreased from 15 to 8% per rank. Walking arsenal, duration of each weapon bonus increased from 8 to 10 seconds. Additional damage from having all bonus increased from 15 to 20%. Having all bonuses now also increases attack speed by 20%. Unconstrained, berserking damage bonus increased from 60 to 100%. Gushing wounds, bonus bleed amount increased from 115 to 140%. Overpower explosion damage increased from 70 to 85%. Weapon expertise leveling has been cut by 50%. Paragon, the martial glyph, now reduces the cooldown of every non-shout skill by 4 seconds instead of every other shout skill by 1.2 seconds. Item updates, resource aspect of Echoing Fury. You now generate 6 to 10 Fury per second while any shout skill is active instead of 2 to 4 for You now generate 6 to 10 Fury per second while any shout skill is active instead of 2 to 4 Fury per second for each shout skill active. Offensive aspect of Limitless Rage. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Veteran Brawler's offensive aspect. Reduce bonus damage per stack from 15 to 20 to 6 to 8. Up to a reduced maximum bonus of 225 to 300% to 30 to 40%. Offensive aspect of Ancestral Charge. Reduce bonus damage from 75 to 125% to 20 to 30%. Offensive aspect of Encroaching Wrath. Reduce bonus weaponry mastery damage from 82 to 100% to 40 to 60%. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Ring of Red Fury. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. Onto the Druid, new items, Unsung Ascetic Wraps. Lightning Storm gains 1 additional strike each time it grows. Lightning Storm critical strikes cause lightning to strike twice, dealing 10 to 20% increased damage. Virulent Aspect Utility. When rabies infects an enemy, reduce its cooldown by 0.3 to 0.6 seconds. This cooldown reduction is tripled when infecting elites. Skills. Enhanced Rabies. Maximum damage bonus increased from 30 to 60%. Lacerate. Cooldown reduced from 45 to 35 seconds. Prime Lacerate. Changed functionality. Lacerate hits heal for 3% maximum life, increased to 6% on critical strikes. Cataclysm. Twister damage increased from 23 to 46%. Lightning damage increased from 77 to 95%. Supreme Cataclysm. Vulnerable duration increased from 3 to 6 seconds. Passives. Mending. Additional healing received increased from 5 to 6% per rank. Thick Hide. Fortify gain increased from 6.4% to 10% per rank. Unrestrained. Control impairing effects duration reduction increased from 3 to 5% per rank. Increased benefit while over 50% fortify reduced from tripled to double. Natural Fortitude. Fortified gain on shapeshifting increased from 1.4 to 2% per rank. Bestial Rampage. Required shapeshift duration reduced from 2.5 to 2 seconds. Attack speed bonus increased from 25 to 30%. Spirit Boons. Prickle Skin. Thorns increased from 0.15 to 0.6 from 1,194 to 4,776. Gift of the Stag. Maximum spirit increased from 10 to 20. Avian Wrath. Critical strike damage bonus is now multiplicative instead of additive. Paragon. Tectonic. Bonus lucky hit chance increased from 15 to 20%. Poise, barrier increased from 5% of maximum health to 15. Duration increased from 4 to 6 seconds. Wilds, passive companion damage bonus increased from 80 to 120%. Item updates, aspect of the blurred beast. Previous, while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poison enemies, instantly dealing 70 to 100% of the poisoning damage to them. New, while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poison enemies and deals 20 to 40% X increased damage to them. Aspect of Metamorphic Stone. Boulder Spirit cost reduced from 50 to 40. Aspect of the Unsatiated. Spirit generation and bonus damage increased from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40%. Aspect of Retaliation. Bonus damage reduced from 20 to 40 to 20 to 30%. Onto the Bone Daddy Necromancer. New items. Mutilator Plate. You are Bloodlanced, and when Bloodlance would deal damage to you, it instead fortifies you for 1 to 2% of your maximum life and has a 5% chance to form a Blood Orb. Bloodlance deals 10 to 20% X increased damage. Shattered Spirit's Aspect. Offensive. Casting Bone Spirit also launches 18 bone splinters in all directions, dealing 200 to 400% X increased damage and generating 6 essence per enemy hit. Skills. Iron Maiden. Damage increased from 0.2 to 0.3. Horrid Iron Maiden. Bonus damage increased from 20 to 30%. Corpse Explosion. Lucky hit chance reduced from 40 to 25%. Base damage increased from 50 to 70%. Blighted Corpse Explosion damage decreased from 110 to 95%. Blight damage over time increased from 80 to 95%. Sever initial damage increased from 66 to 75%. Return damage increased from 21 to 25%. Bone Spirit. Damage is increased by 4% per essence spent casting Bone Spirit, up from 3%. Dreadful Bone Spirit now restores 30% of your maximum essence instead of a flat 30 essence. Acolytes Decompose. Previous, you and your minions deal 10% X increased damage to enemies being decomposed. New, every 1.5 seconds, Decompose makes enemies vulnerable for 4 seconds. Initiates Decompose. Previous, Decompose slows enemies by 50%. New, Decompose slows enemies by 50%, and if you channel Decompose for at least 1.5 seconds, you gain 30% movement speed for 5 seconds after ending the channel. Dreadful Blood Mist. Previous, Blood Mist fortifies you for 0.5% of your maximum life each time it hits an enemy. New, you gain plus 10% critical strike chance for 4 seconds after Blood Mist ends. Bone Prison. Friendly players and minions can now freely pass through Bone Prison walls. The functionality of Enhanced Bone Prison and Ghastly Bone Prison have been swapped. Enhanced Bone Prison. Enemies inside the Bone Prison are vulnerable. Ghastly Bone Prison. If an enemy is trapped by Bone Prison, gain 25 essence, plus an additional 5 per enemy trap. Dreadful Bone Prison. Previous, fortify for 8% of your maximum life for each enemy trapped by Bone Prison. New, reduce your active cooldowns by 0.5 seconds for each enemy trapped by Bone Prison, up to 3 seconds. Passives. Ossified Essence now displays the current bonus on the tooltip. Book of the Dead. Golem. When golems finish casting their active ability, they will first try to target a new close enemy before reverting to their previous target. Blood Golem and Iron Golem basic attacks now hit enemies in an area around the main target. Bone Golem. Active ability now grants the Golem Thorns equal to 70% of your armor for the duration of the taunt. Bone Mage. Upgrade now fortifies based on your maximum life instead of base life. Skeletal Priest. Healing increased from 25 to 40% over the 8-second duration. Paragon. Cult Leader Legendary Paragon Node. Previous, your minions deal 50% X increased damage for each minion type you have active. New, your minions deal 10% X increased damage for each 20% plus of attack speed bonus they have. Golem, additional bonus changed from 25% health to 25% damage. Item updates, Aspect of Swelling Curse. Previous, Bone Spirit deals increased damage based on distance traveled up to 15 to 25% X. New, Bone Spirit's critical strike chance is increased by 15 to 25% plus. Your maximum essence is increased by 2 for every each enemy hit for 15 seconds. Torturous Aspect. Previous, enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden have a 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. New, Iron Maiden is now also a darkness skill and deals shadow damage. Enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden have a 15 to 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. Rotting Aspect. Chance to spawn additional corpses increased from 30 to 60% to 50 to 100%. Hulking Aspect. Chance to reduce Golem's active cooldown increased from 2 to 5% to 4 to 10%. Chance to spawn a corpse increased from 1 to 2.5% to 2 to 5%. Onto the Rogue. New items. Beastful Boots. When you cast an ultimate skill, your next core skill consumes all of your energy and deals 0.5 to 1.5% increased damage per energy consumed. Using a cooldown restores 5 energy. Resistant Assailant's Aspect. Defensive. Breaking Concealment grants plus 10% resistance and maximum resist to all elements for 4 seconds. Killing an elite enemy reduces Concealment's cooldown by 6 to 10 seconds. Skills. Blade Shift. Damage increased from 16% to 20. Duration increased from 3 to 4 seconds. Fundamental Invigorating Strike. Vulnerable now applies while you are below 85% energy, up from 75% energy. Enhanced Caltrops. Previous, enemies take 5% X increased damage from you each second they are in Caltrops. New, enemies in Caltrops take 10% X increased damage from you, increased by 5% X each second. Rain of Arrows. Cast time reduced by 15%. The first wave of arrows now hits closer to the player. Cold Imbuement. Chill amount now increases by 5% per skill rank, up from 2.5%. Blended Cold Imbuement. Remove the critical strike requirement and increase the lucky hit chance from 20 to 35%. Mixed Poison Imbuement. Previous lucky hit, poison imbued skills have up to a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poisoning damage over time. New lucky hit, poison imbued skills have up to a 30% chance to reduce poison imbuement's cooldown by 2 seconds. Forceful Arrow. Vulnerable duration increased from 3 to 5 seconds. Enhanced Penetrating Shot. Previous, Penetrating Shot deals 10% X increased damage per enemy it pierces. Now, as opposed to new, now Penetrating Shot has a 10% plus increased critical strike chance. If Penetrating Shot damages at least 3 enemies, gain 10% plus critical strike chance for 5 seconds. Improved Penetrating Shot. Previous, if Penetrating Shot damaged at least 3 enemies, your next Penetrating Shot has a 20% plus increased critical strike chance. New, Penetrating Shot deals an additional 10% X increased damage per enemy it hits. Passives. Close Quarters Combat. Amount of damage versus crowd controlled bonus conversion percent reduced from 40 to 10%. Attack speed per stack increased from 10 to 15. Precision. Previous. Critical strike with marksman skills grants you precision. You gain 4% X critical strike damage per stacks of precision, up to a maximum of 20% X. When you reach maximum precision, your next marksman skill is guaranteed to critically strike and deals 40% X increased critical strike damage. Then it consumes all stacks of precision. New, each marksman skill cast grants 1 stack of precision, or 2 if it has critically struck. When you reach 6 stacks, your next marksman core or ultimate skill is a guaranteed crit that deals X 50% increased critical strike damage, consuming all stacks of precision. The damage is further increased by an amount equal to X 50% of your critical strike damage bonus. Chilling weight. Previously, chill enemies have their movement speed further reduced by 10, 20, 30%. New, chill enemies have their movement speed further reduced by up to 10, 20, 30%, and you gain 5, 10, 15% X increased chill effect. Concussive. Previously, after knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 4% increased critical strike chance against them for 4 seconds. New, after knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 4% increased critical strike chance for 4 seconds. Paragon. Leirana's Instinct. Previous, when inner sight's gauge becomes full, you gain 100% plus dodge chance for 1.5 seconds. New, when inner sight's gauge becomes full, you gain 100% dodge chance for 2 seconds. Your next 3 core skills deal additional damage equal to 20% X of your core skill damage bonus. Item updates. Blade Dancer's Aspect. The orbiting blades can now hit each enemy 2 times, reduced from 3. Developer's note. This change was made to properly match the visuals of the 2 rotations around the player. Previous, twisting blades orbit for a short time after they return to you, dealing 10 to 50% of twisting blades return damage per hit. Based on the distance of the blades returning, the orbit damage increases up to 20 to 30% of the return damage. New, twisting blades orbit for a short time after they return to you, dealing 20 to 30% of twisting blades return damage per hit. Aspect of Stolen Vigor. Previous, each stack of momentum key passive heals you for 0.04 to 0.08 life per second. New, each stack of momentum key passive heals you for 0.04 to 0.08 life per second and grants you 5% damage reduction. Icy Alchemist. Previously, a lucky hit, damaging a chilled or frozen enemy with a shadow imbued skill has up to a 75% chance to release an explosion that deals 0.3 to 0.48 cold damage to the target and surrounding enemies, chilling them for 25%. New, lucky hit, shadow imbued skill have up to a 75% chance to release an explosion that deals 0.3 to 0.48 cold damage to the target and surrounding enemies, chilling them for 25%. If they were already chilled or frozen, increase this damage by 100%. Toxic Alchemist. Previously, lucky hit, damaging a poison enemy with a shadow imbued skills has up to a 75% chance to create a toxic explosion that applies 0.15 to 0.2 poisoning damage over 5 seconds to the target and surrounding enemies. New, lucky hit, shadow imbued skills have up to a 75% chance to create a toxic explosion that applies the 0.2 to 0.3 poisoning damage over 5 seconds to the target and surrounding enemies. If the enemy was already poisoned, increase this damage by 100%. Wind Force. Lucky hit chance increased from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40%. Sky Hunter, inherent affix changed from damage to distant enemies to critical strike damage. Critical strike damage affix value increased by 100%. This does not apply to the inherent critical strike damage affix. Effect updated to reflect changes to the precision key passive. Previously, the first direct damage you deal to an enemy is a guaranteed critical strike. You had a max stacks of the precision key passive. When you cast a skill, you gain 20 to 30 energy. This can only happen once per cast. New, the first direct damage you deal to an enemy is a guaranteed critical strike. When you consume precision casting a skill, that skill gains X 10 to 30% increased critical strike damage, and you gain 20 to 40 energy. Eagle Horn. Previously, penetrating shot has a 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounced off of walls and scenery, damaging 5 enemies, and penetrating shot will cause your next cast to make enemies hit vulnerable for 3 seconds. New, penetrating shot makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. Every 4th cast bounces off of walls and scenery and deals 20 to 40% X bonus damage. Sorcerer. New items, Starfall Coronet. Meteor now has 2 charges and a 11 to 6 second charge cooldown instead of a mana cost, and drops 3 additional meteors around the target. Meteor's enchantment effect and enhanced meteor drop 1 additional meteor. Aspect of Shredding Blades, offensive. Ice Blades' chance to apply vulnerable is increased by 20%, and the vulnerable duration is increased by 4 seconds. You gain 15 to 25% X vulnerable damage. Skills, Ball Lightning. Enhanced Ball Lightning changed to have its attack rate increase with attack speed up to 25%. Blizzard. Mage's Blizzard condition to be cast while over 50 mana has been removed. Lightning Spear. Critical strikes now apply a vulnerable for 3 seconds. Paragon. Searing Heat. Fix an issue where the critical strike chance bonus was not properly applying. Critical strike chance bonus increased from plus 10% to 12%. Elemental Summoner. Conjuration damage bonus increased from X3% to X5% of the total amount of your bonus damage with fire, lightning, and cold. Burning Instinct. Amount of intelligence required to gain X1% bonus burning damage reduced from 75 to 25. Item updates. Offensive aspect of Shattered Stars. Meteorite damage has been changed to be 20 to 30% of the casted meteor's damage. Staff of Alam Essen. Increased charged bolt chance to be attracted to enemies from 30 to 50% to 40 to 60%. Ice Heart Blaze. Chance to unleash a Frost Nova when enemies die increased from 11 to 20 to 21 to 30%. Gameplay. Endgame activities. Helltide will now be active every hour on the hour with a 5-minute gap in between. Helltide will be active 55 minutes of every hour. So players can more consistently acquire Distilled Fear, we've reworked how Distilled Fear is collected from Nightmare Dungeons. Players will always gain a Distilled Fear after completing a Nightmare Dungeon of at least tier 30. Every 10 tiers after tier 30, there's an increasing chance for additional Distilled Fears to be rewarded. Completing the tier 90 Nightmare Dungeons and beyond will always grant 3 Distilled Fears. The Purified Sigil reward for completing a Nightmare Dungeon will now always grant a Sigil 1 tier greater than the Nightmare Dungeon just completed. Items. Scrolls of Escape now will populate in the lost item stash if the player missed one that was dropped. Stack limit increased from 20 to 99. Appear as legendary so that they are harder to miss when dropped on the ground. The chance for scattered prisms to drop when defeating an elite monster has been reduced. Scattered prisms can now be acquired from Legion event chests. The material cap has been increased from 99,999 to 999,999 bottles of beer on the wall. Treasure goblins spawn while fighting avarice now have the same loot potential as normally encountered treasure goblins. World Tier 3 and 4 world bosses weekly caches can now drop unique items. Increased cap for item power on drops from world bosses has been adjusted. Previously, plus 100 to min, plus 100 to max. New, plus 65 to min, plus 25 to max. Developers note, world bosses are intended to reward powerful loot for your level. With this change, at a high level, players will see maximum item power gear from world bosses at higher levels. The item power ranges for items dropped by endgame bosses such as Varshan and Zir have been decreased for rare and legendary items. Unique item power has not been changed. Examples: note that the current range for unique items was previously the range for all items. Varshan in World Tier 3, level 55, unique item power ranges 675 to 750, rare legendary range 650 to 725. Grigor in World Tier 4, level 75, unique item power range 850 to 925, rare legendary range 800 to 875. Beast in Ice, level 85, unique item power ranges 900 to 925, rare legendary range 850 to 925. Duriel remains unchanged, always drops 925. Nightmare Dungeon item power scaling has been adjusted to more consistently drop high item power loot in high tier Nightmare Dungeons. Examples: monsters at level 100, legendary item power range. Previously was 820 to 925. Now it's 845 to 925. Rare item power range, previously 785 to 925. New 810 to 925. Monsters at level 125, the legendary item power range, previously was 845 to 925. New 910 to 925. With the rare item power range, previously 810 to 925, new 885 to 925. All monsters above level 144, Nightmare Dungeon tier 90 plus, now are guaranteed to drop 925 item power gear. Miscellaneous. Potion count will no longer be reset after dying and being revived by another player. The Hatred's Chosen Siphon effect is no longer based on lucky hit. The Greed Shrine effect also now will drop additional gold after the effect expires. The amount of gold drop is determined by how many enemies were killed while the shrine buff was active. Uber unique items can now be unlocked as transmogs. UI and UE, new settings have been added to allow navigation in the world with full keyboard controls, including movement using the WASD or WASD keys instead of your mouse. Bonuses from keywords such as Burger King, Berserker King. Also now to know whether any associated damage bonus is additive or multiplicative. Make sure if you comment on this video that you put hashtag Burger King buff in the comments below. Event timers are now displayed on the world map. The visual effect for being chilled will now visually increase in intensity to denote how close the chilled character is to being frozen. The default button bindings for mount actions have been adjusted to be more intuitive on controller. An additional stash tab is now available to be purchased in-game with gold. Maximum stash tabs available are now 6. The icons for the Helltide Chest of Mysteries and Living Steel Chest have been updated to make them more visually distinctive from the other chest icons. The button for confirming gold amount in the trade interface on controller has been changed to your triangle on console. This will allow pressing A or X on console to bring up the virtual keyboard to manually enter gold amounts when trading. We have introduced a new way for players to approach reworking their skill tree. Players can now refund whole paths or skill clumps while seeing a preview of it all. Players can also see how many skill points will be refunded to them and how much gold it will cost in advance. Developers note. Developers note, we never make typos. He knew the new respec options allow players to easily refund or re-add their skills in a flexible way. Our goal with these additions come on, who wrote this? Adam? Come on, baby. Our goal with these additions to make purchasing and refunding nodes less time consuming while encouraging players to experiment more. Okay, well, listen, here's the TLDR and what the community wants, right? We want to be able to save our loadouts. This is cool, and thank you very much, GG's, on the progression for the Q of L within the skill tree. But when it comes down to it, we need to save our builds. We need to save our loadouts. Godspeed on implementing that into the game. Please and thank you. Moving on. Bug fixes, accessibility, fixed an issue where the screen reader did not read the, you know what? All these bug fixes, accessibility, gameplay, for the Barbarian, Druid, Necromancer, Rogue, Sorcerer, bug fixes for the UI and the UE, for the quest and dungeons, for the miscellaneous. I'm gonna leave it up to you, Wanderer, to click on the link in the description and find out for yourself. It's a very interesting read, and I highly suggest that you do it. Any questions or concerns with these bug fixes or anything that you have noticed that is not in these patch notes, please submit a ticket and let us know in the comments below. And there you have it, patch notes for update 1.3.0 for the upcoming season of the Construct Season 3 for Diablo 4, launching on January 23rd. As always, let us know your thoughts on what we read today in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Be safe, and remember, in Sanctuary, the forge is always hot. Thank you for watching. Likes and shares are kindly appreciated, and subscribe for more Diablo 4 content. Peace.